listeners. Welcome back to the Dethroning Your Inner Critic YouTube channel. I'm Joanna Kleinman, and today I'd like to talk to you about becoming clearer on what's right for you and what's not right for you. Now, I work with so many people who know that they're settling in some area of their life, and they're afraid to let go of the part of their life that looks good on paper, right? Looks good in what society says is a good life, but deep down, they know that they're settling for just good enough. So when is good enough good enough? And when do you know that you're holding on to something because it's safe and predictable? So here's just the truth. If you want a great life, you have to be willing to let go of just settling for a good life. Now, if this is you, if you want that life that's great, you've got to be willing to sit in some discomfort, and it might be discomfort for a while. Now, believe me, I know about this firsthand, okay? That's why it is now my passion to help people who are in this exact situation. So we're not talking about trying to make life perfect, because perfection does not exist. So what I'm talking about is creating a life that's in alignment with your true self. Now, if you've been listening to my podcast for a while, then you know that you have this automatic mind that's hardwired to seek out predictability and comfort. So there might be a part of your life that is sort of kind of predictable and kind of comfortable. You might have a career where you're making good money, you have good benefits, you like some part of the job, but there's another part that you just don't like, right? Maybe you have a supervisor that doesn't really see you and doesn't really value what you provide. Or you know you want to make a bigger impact in the world in some way, and you're not doing anything to make that a reality. Or maybe you have a life partner, right? And you know, your relationship is fine, everything's fine, but deep down you know that you're not connected in the way that you want to be with this person. Maybe you have an extra 10 or 20 pounds you're carrying around, right? And you blame it on your hormones or your age, but deep down you know that you're still using food as a comfort or a crutch. So now, you might compare your life to a lot of other people and you say, listen, I have it better than so many other people, right? But that has you justify keeping life in that status quo, safe, predictable, comfort place, okay? So you might have a lot of boxes checked, okay? But when you drop in and you feel it in your body, you feel unsettled. It feels like something is not quite right, or it feels like a tension, okay? Now, this is where many people override that tension and they default to that automatic mind that says, it's fine, everything's good enough. But if you want a life that's in alignment with your true self, you have to be willing to pay attention and listen to that tension, because that tension is trying to teach you something and trying to show you something and trying to guide you somewhere. But if you ignore it and run away from it, that's how you stay right inside your comfort zone, and that's how your growth is stifled, right? Now, as we keep growing and evolving, our relationship with discomfort changes dramatically, okay? And so sometimes people think that growth is being able to endure more pain or push harder through challenges or develop this unshakable resilience, okay? But if you're really talking about true growth, it is way more nuanced than that, okay? So yes, it means expanding our capacity to be with discomfort. And that could be the discomfort of confusion or emotional pain or uncertainty, right? And we can sit with it without immediately wanting to run away from it or react impulsively or seek out distractions to numb ourselves. right? And this is where we can, just sort of use our ability to be present, just to breathe in those challenging moments and to navigate that emotional turbulence, okay? But to have a great life doesn't mean that what you're seeking out right now is peace and joy. It's not going to feel good all the time. Inner peace is the end result of your willingness to sit in that emotional turbulence and allow that discomfort to be your greatest teacher. Okay. Because when you're most uncomfortable, this is when you're being guided to do the inner work that's required to get to a place where you are able to deeply accept yourself in the areas where in the past you've felt shame, you've felt inadequacy, you've felt guilt, right? And again, that's not something that happens overnight, but using your discomfort to question your old beliefs that you've been dragging around with you since you've been 10 or 15 years old, maybe even younger, right? That's how you start to disintegrate your shame, your doubt, your fear that's getting in the way of letting go of what is a good life to make room and space for a great life. Okay. So when you do this deep inner work, you start to replace your judgment of yourself, other people, with more understanding. You start to replace your self-doubt or your regrets with self-compassion. You become more comfortable in your own skin to the point where there's nothing left to hide. And there's no more reasons left to run away or to stay in the predictable. Now, that's when life becomes truly magical because you're not using that automatic mind to navigate life. Okay. Now, a lot of the work that I do in the mind method, part of that work is using your body as your compass. See, your body tells you within seconds what is in alignment with your true authentic self and what isn't. If you're using your mind to figure that out, your automatic mind is going to have a lot to say, right? And it's going to drag you down the rabbit hole of worry and dread and uncertainty. But when you are able to really locate where your authentic self resides, your body will tell you within seconds what isn't a fit for you. And when you navigate from that place, you're always being steered towards what is a fit. Now, some of you might be afraid to let go of things that are just good enough because you really don't know what it is that you even want for yourself. You might be asking yourself the question, what do I even want to do with the rest of my life? Okay. And if that's a question that has you feeling stuck because you're not sure of who your future self is even going to become, all right, let alone what your future self is going to want, you can start to ask yourself a different question. And that question could be, what do I feel inspired to explore more deeply right now at this point in my life? And that is how you remove this pressure of trying to plan the rest of your whole life from one single moment in time. Okay. And that's the beautiful thing about this journey that we're on, because what I've been inspired to explore changes with each new level of growth and awareness that I step into, right? So when we don't need to figure out this plan for the rest of our lives, we can move more freely forward because we're honoring that ever-changing nature of who we are. We don't have to know what the rest of our lives will be. We only need to really know what feels in alignment right now. And that will never steer us wrong. I don't mean that it's always going to steer us to exactly what it is that we want, okay? But if we sort of keep leaning into that alignment, we will always go to either the next level of growth or the next lesson that we need to learn. So as we deepen this self-awareness and we have more capacity to deal with that discomfort and uncertainty, we have far less tolerance for any bullshit. We become far more attuned to things that might feel fake, they might feel manipulative, they might feel misaligned with what we really want. And we develop this lower tolerance for the noise, the distractions, the people, and the situations that drain us because we've stopped running away from discomfort. We've stopped reacting impulsively to circumstances that are out of our comfort zone, and we've stopped numbing the tension. So we can feel into discomfort that's actually pushing us towards our highest selves. And then we can also discern discomfort that feels out of alignment with our highest selves. Now, that's a key distinction. Just because we've built the capacity to sit with discomfort doesn't mean that we're required to sit with discomfort. And there is a wisdom in knowing when the discomfort is a necessary part of growth and when it's a signal that something isn't right for us. Okay, so this is where that discernment plays a critical role. Discomfort can be a very powerful teacher, but not all discomfort serves your highest good, right? So learning to distinguish between those two different levels of discomfort is a profound sign of growth. It's getting clearer on what feels nourishing to your soul versus what feels like an energy drain. And the more you tune into this, the more you'll recognize that your capacity for discomfort is always about choosing what's aligned with your deepest truth and walking away from what's not. So all my work is about learning how to master your mind. And when you're mastering your mind, this discernment is crucial, right? Not pushing through pain for the sake of it, but embracing discomfort that leads to your true self and rejecting anything that keeps you trapped in that vicious cycle of fear, uncertainty, discomfort, right? So when you are able to just observe your automatic mind that's trying to drag you back into feeling worried or feeling anxious or needing to know how something's going to go and not getting sucked into that, that's a sign that you're getting stronger. You're wiser, you're more clear in your vision, you're more in tune with what really truly serves your authentic self. Because your automatic mind is never going to stop trying to lead your life through the lens of needing to know how it's all going to turn out. That's why we're so afraid to let go of what we know isn't in alignment with what we truly want. Because if it's up to our automatic mind has a lot of preferences and demands that we should have certainty and predictability and control throughout the journey of our life, which is impossible. Okay. And it can feel easier to stay in a place that feels seemingly safe and predictable, right? So when you let go of what seems like a good life because you're making room and space for a great life, there are going to be a lot of people in your life that might have a reaction to this, right? They're going to tell you, you know what? The grass isn't always greener on the other side. And sometimes, good is good enough. Now, the truth is, in certain parts of our life, the grass is greener where you water it. Okay. And that's the truth. But there are other parts where if you really lean into the discomfort, you know that you can water that grass all you want and it's not going to get any greener. Okay. And that's how, when your automatic mind starts screaming at you, trying to protect you, trying to keep you safe within your comfort zone, that you can let that mind scream at you while you keep taking steps that are in alignment with the bigger vision that you're creating. Okay. And unfortunately, living a life trying to stay comfortable and at peace all the time is exactly what puts a lid on what's truly possible for you in your life. You know, I am 53, I'm almost 54 in a couple of months, and I haven't even peaked in my life. I'm still growing, I'm still evolving. I haven't peaked in my business. I haven't peaked as a woman, as a wife, as a mom, as a friend, in how I take care of my body. I'm continuing to grow. And with that growth, it isn't always easy and it isn't always comfortable. There's sacrifice. There's a lot of things that I don't know how it's going to turn out, but many people choose the alternative, which is shoving down that discomfort and not doing the inner work. They would rather stick forks in their eyes than do the inner work, right? They're not willing to invest the time and the money in growth, right? I've had to invest so much time and money in growing the business of my dreams, right? I've had to have difficult conversations in my marriage. That's what creates an extraordinary relationship as opposed to an ordinary relationship, right? So paying attention to what feels like a clear, spacious yes inside my body, instead of listening to my mind whip up all those typical worst case scenarios, that's what has given me a life that has surpassed anything that I could have created if I stayed within my comfort zone. So it's the times that you don't meet that automatic mind's preferences for predictability, right? That's when those familiar fear-based thoughts and beliefs are going to run amok, okay? When you begin to take guidance from a different place entirely and use your deeper inner knowing to guide you, you might not even know why you're being pulled in a certain direction, but you know that it feels aligned. So you take that step and you go in that direction, even if you don't know how it's going to go and how it's going to unfold, right? You can't have unexpected miracles in your life if you're still checking the boxes and staying on the path of predictability and certainty. You need to know how to drop beneath your mind into your body and see what feels like that expansive yes and what feels like a no, right? So I'm inviting you to drop beneath your mind and learn to discern what feels like a clear yes and what feels like a clear no, and what feels like an I don't know yet, because that's also a place, right? Now, where it gets especially challenging is when people tell you you need to know. Sometimes you don't need to know. Sometimes it's okay to just stay in that period of not knowing. And again, even though it's uncomfortable, it's okay to stay there, to be willing to be uncomfortable on purpose, and to trust that the universe is always guiding us towards what is our highest level of growth. Now, if you choose to align with that belief and live in that space, that's not a typical way to live. You're going to get pushback. Okay. Even the people that love you, if they're not living in alignment, they're going to project their fear and pain about their compromise or their settling of their life and their fear of taking risks. I mean, this path is definitely not for the faint of heart. You have to be willing to let go of something that seems good enough and trust that what is truly right is eventually going to prevent itself. And it could take a while. Again, I know firsthand, I spent over a decade taking actions that aligned with the impact I knew I wanted to make on the quality of people's lives. And for many years, while I was taking those actions, I was only impacting one person at a time. I was a psychotherapist in private practice. I was impacting one person at a time. And on paper, that would have been a perfectly good life. But deep in my soul, I knew that I wanted to make a much bigger impact. And it took many years of rewiring my old patterns of fear and doubt and uncertainty and feeling like I wasn't good enough for that vision to become a reality. And our culture doesn't promote this. Our culture promotes predictability and certainty. And there were a lot of people in my life telling me, just stay in private practice. You do such a great job. Your clients love you. You make such an impact, which was true. But I knew that there was something else that I was supposed to do. So the path of letting go of the patterns and the beliefs that have been keeping you overriding yourself, right? Or going in a direction that isn't quite it. It's about knowing the difference between the voice of your soul versus the voice that's coming from fear. And that is a subtle balancing act. Okay. So it's essential to cultivate awareness of how you interact with yourself, how you interact with your thoughts, how you interact with your beliefs. This awareness becomes especially critical when it comes to how you cope when you're faced with a challenge in your life, right? When you're faced with a challenge in your life, are you engaging with your coping strategies consciously? Or are your coping strategies running on autopilot? Now, that difference is really important, okay? Because some unconscious coping strategies might be self-soothing, but they're also self-sabotaging, right? Using food, using alcohol, using overworking or being overly busy or overly exercising. These are all coping strategies that some of them people would praise. But these are coping strategies that you might be using to avoid discomfort. Now, here's something that's really important. If you let yourself actually feel your uncomfortable emotions and you have awareness of these emotions, it could be anger, it could be fear, sadness, boredom. Awareness of your emotions is not the same thing as becoming those emotions. So, for example, your awareness of anger isn't itself angry. Your awareness of fear isn't afraid. Your awareness of boredom doesn't feel bored. That is a subtle distinction, but it's the foundation for emotional freedom. Because there's a part of you that can observe your experience without becoming entangled in it. And this observing self, which exists beyond the reach of your emotions and thoughts, is the part of you that holds the key in being able to let go of good to make space for great. You can be aware of all the emotions that show up, but not get entangled in them, right? As I said, my journey of being where I was to where I am now continues to have a lot of emotions that are uncomfortable. But the difference is I bring awareness to them as opposed to getting entangled in them. And that is a fundamental difference that's changed the quality of my life and changes the quality of everyone's life who's engaged in this kind of work. So when you operate from this place of conscious awareness, you can approach your emotions and your coping strategies with intentionality. So instead of being swept away by your anger, your fear, your stress, your overwhelm, you can recognize that these emotions are temporary experiences and they really only come from your thoughts. So allowing your emotions to flow through you without dictating your actions is where your true freedom lies. The freedom to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. And that comes from understanding what is at the heart of your emotions, which is very often beliefs that we've been dragging around with us like a heavy backpack since we've been about 5 or 10 years old. And that's for all of us. So this is what it means to unhook yourself from your automatic mind. Your automatic mind is where your inner critic thrives. So tapping into the part of yourself that can observe and discern and choose. When you become aware of your coping mechanisms, now you can ask yourself, am I using this strategy to avoid discomfort, or am I consciously choosing it because it serves me? That's a subtle but powerful shift that allows you to break free from these patterns and these habits of thought that are no longer serving you and probably haven't been serving you for a very long time. So instead of unconsciously reacting to your life's challenges, you respond with clarity and purpose because you are aligned with your true self. So as you continue to explore what inspires you and you move towards that life that feels aligned, it's really important to pay attention to how you cope. Are you numbing? Are you distracting? Are you avoiding? Or are you mindfully navigating these experiences and making choices that are really in alignment with your deepest values? Okay, that discernment between necessary discomfort and discomfort from misalignment is really critical, because what happens when you engage in this work is that you actually learn how to become your own best friend. Right? When you're growing and learning to navigate your life, you can fall into that self-doubt, that self-criticism. Now, just imagine when you're there, right? When you're deeply in your fear, your anxiety, your overwhelm, your sadness, your anger. I want you to imagine if you knew how to speak to yourself the way you would speak to your best friend. So instead of being harsh or dismissive, what if you learned how to offer yourself compassion and understanding and patience, right? When you were going through something difficult, what if you learned how to console yourself like you would a best friend, right? Your best friend is someone you would never abandon, you'd never berate, you'd never judge harshly, you'd never treat that person the way that you might tend to treat yourself, or speak to that person the way that you might speak to yourself, right? And let's even talk about our successes in our life, okay? We so often don't celebrate our successes. We brush off our wins like they're nothing before we're on to the next thing that we have to do or change or fix or accomplish. What if you celebrated your own victories and successes the way that you celebrate your best friend's victories and successes, right? Even if it's a small accomplishment, what if you acknowledged yourself, right? We don't even know how to take the time to do that for ourselves sometimes, right? Imagine going back and looking at the decades of your life with everything that you've achieved and everything that you've accomplished. I mean, I'm not even talking about the big things. I'm talking about the small wins and small successes that you've navigated that you've never given yourself any credit for, right? We've got to encourage ourselves, because stepping into a world where we're really creating a great life is not easy, okay? So instead of just getting swallowed by what is the typical rants of your inner critic, you can actually learn how to rewire a very different mind with very different thoughts and beliefs that has you tuned into very different emotions about yourself, about your life, about your past, it having you interrupt those vicious cycles, which changes how you create your life moving forward. So by learning to unhook from your automatic mind, you create that space, not just for radical self-acceptance, but this automatic way of needing the outside world to fit your pictures so that you can feel the way that you want to feel, right? Your authentic self is already whole. It already has peace. You don't have to chase your inner peace. It actually emerges naturally when you no longer have anything left to hide, anything left to run away from, anything left to distract yourself from. And this is where the Mastering Your Mind program can really help you to access that deeper part of yourself that knows how to sit in discomfort and also knows when to let go. Because your fulfillment in your life comes from honoring what truly serves you. So if you're ready to transform your life with the Mind Method and dive deeper into mastering your mind, give yourself the gift of a clarity session with me. It is free. There is no obligation to join the program. This clarity call will explore how you can break free from the patterns that are holding you back and how to create a life that you truly desire. So it's time to invest in yourself and take the next steps towards changing the trajectory of the rest of your life. If you're ready to see if this program is right for you, go to dethroningyourinnercritic.com, find the link to schedule a clarity conversation, and let's talk about whether the program is right for you. Thanks for tuning in today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.